G'day legends and welcome back to the Cricket Mentoring Show. I'm very excited today as we have a new piece of equipment each in front of us, better microphones, better audio. So hopefully for you guys listening on the podcast, it'll sound a little bit better in your ears. And as always, I have Reedy with me. How are you, Reedy?
Very good, thanks mate. It's nice for us to finally be stepping up in the world and getting some proper stuff sorted out, proper mics. So hopefully I don't sound too mundane in this episode like the last one.
Yep. Well, we're borrowing these, giving them a little trial today, and then we might invest in better equipment in the future. But Reedy, before we get into the show, tell us all about what happened in the Fanning versus Reid showdown. In our last episode, we had Sam Fanning, a Western Australian contracted player on, and you guys, it was a Friday. You were about to have day one of a two-day match the next day. It obviously then concluded over the weekend, so give us all a bit of a rundown on the game.
Yeah, well, it was a tight game. Fanners was expecting big things from my offies. I didn't even bowl offies, so that was a good start from him. We had to take 7 wickets for about 100 runs. So we knew the first session was pretty big.
Go back a step. What happened in the first week? Give us all a bit of insight.
Yeah, well, I got Fanners out after he said he'd fill his boots facing my little med. So taste it, Fanners. And it's good to have one up on him now. I can hold that against him.
And so who batted first? What were the scores?
We got rolled for 157 in the first week, and then we took 3 for about 50 after that. So the game was well and truly in the balance on a decent wicket, but if we bowled well, we knew we could get the job done, which we did. We started day 2 really well. Big Bryce Jackson stepped up for us, the rookie contracted player for WA. His energy and grit, really dug in for us, bowled a serious spell first up, and then I held up the other end with my little meds and managed to sneak a few cheap ones and a couple of caught in the ring and caught and bowled, I think, like that, because they were trying to hit me for 6. So, it all worked out well for us in the end.
Yeah, nice work. Melville winners against Perth. Now, there's been plenty of cricket going on around the world, as always. We had the Big Bash final over the weekend. The West Indies versus England T20 series concluded overnight. We had the Women's Ashes is going on, an awesome test match. And then, of course, the Under-19 World Cup is reaching the pointy end. It's reaching the semi-finals. What have you been watching, Reedy?
The Big Bash final was something else, wasn't it? I think I saw the first 4 wickets fall, and I thought it's just on a pretty tricky wicket, a slow turning wicket, I think it was, and I think lost a bit of hope there for the Scorchies, but that partnership between Evans and Turner was just incredible, really, and something we'll talk more about. And then staying up to watch Teague bat the other night was very special. The kid just loves it, and I think it just finds a way. That's all that really matters, isn't it? Finding a way.
Absolutely. Well, we'll talk about him more, but I'm going to start with the West Indies versus England T20 International Series, and what a series it's been. It was 2-2 going into the final match. Obviously, England are a fantastic white ball side, a T20 side stacked with superstars, but the West Indies are coming good again, and I'm going to be talking about that in a minute. But Jason Holder last night, 4 wickets in 4 balls to win the match, to win the series. It's a pretty special effort. That Cameron Boyce did that recently in the Big Bash. 4 wickets in 4 balls, which was the first time that's ever happened in the Big Bash. I'm not sure it's happened too many times in T20 international cricket. So the big Jason Holder doing pretty special things over there in the West Indies. And well done to the West Indies winning the series 3-2. A really hotly contested and, up and down series. The Women's Ashes yesterday, the test match, and again, we'll talk about this a bit more a little bit later, but it was fascinating cricket. Did you manage to watch much of that yesterday?
I managed to catch all the highlights of the last day. I unfortunately couldn't watch live, but isn't it amazing what the game of Test cricket can bring? I think the ebbs and flows over the course of the day looked, incredible, really, and it was a good declaration, and I think the right result was had in the end, a draw. Some people might think differently with wanting the extra fifth day to get the result, but the fourth day managed to bring a game like that and a nice tight finish.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, I think the declaration by the Aussies was made the match really, really exciting. And then the way England went about it, obviously they're behind in the series and they needed to sort of try and get the win. Now that there's a draw, I think they've got to win 2 or 3 of the last 3 ODIs. So they're in the Aussies are in the box seat. But yeah, the way the English went about their run chase, and they were in the box seat for a long, long time. But the 2 young Aussie girls, Alana King, who was a mentor for us here at Cricket Mentoring in the winter, and I've forgotten her name.
Annabelle Sutherland.
Annabelle Sutherland. It was on the tip of my tongue. Those 2 under pressure bowled absolutely beautifully with Elise Perry in the, sort of at mid-on, mid-off, talking them through it and helping them through it. They're the future of Australian women's cricket. And as you say, Test cricket, I just don't know why, and we're going to talk a bit more about that in a minute. I don't know why they don't play more Test cricket. It was awesome. It was as good a Test viewing as you'll watch those last couple of hours last night. It was such... I was sort of doing some jobs around the house and I sort of had it on the TV in the background. Then I put it on my phone while I was in the kitchen. And by the end of it, I was just sitting still watching every ball. I was absolutely glued to the screen. I was getting my daughter to come and watch and trying to get her sort of involved and enjoying it. She wasn't that interested. She's only 3 years old, but I'll be forcing her to watch some more cricket as she gets a bit older. But it really was a great, great product, and it was high quality cricket. Some of the outfield catching, especially by Beth Mooney, was high class, under pressure. And for me, it's, and I'm going to talk about this again in a minute, but they've just got to play more Test cricket, and it's such an exciting product.
You beat me to it there. I was going to mention Beth Mooney, broken jaw, diving forward at cricket balls on the boundary line. Like, it doesn't get much tougher than that. And that's what it means to these girls to be playing for their country, I think. You see the emotion every wicket. It was incredible.
Yeah, well, we'll talk more about that in a minute because that's definitely featuring throughout this show. But what have you noticed, Reedy?
Well, as I mentioned, watching Big Teague get it done against Pakistan, it just proves once again that if you can't sweep, you're probably going to struggle at the top level. I think that's just so clear these days, especially T20 cricket. The spinners are really good. Pakistan had 3 really handy spinners, and it was turning. But Teague's ability to just put that aside and commit to his options, his best options, which he's been working on massively. I think that, and then to watch a few other players sort of struggle to rotate the strike and get that good spin bowling away. I think it was another good example of why sweeping is just a must.
And we saw it in the Big Bash final as well. Laurie Evans and Ash Turner under pressure. Sweeping was one of their go-to options, and it was a way to put the pressure back on Nathan Lyon, the GOAT, and Steve O'Keefe, 2 fantastic bowlers. But Evans and Turner used their sweep shot really, really effectively. So I couldn't agree more with what you've said there. And for me, what I've noticed is the West Indies, when they get their full star-studded group together, they're as good as anyone in white ball cricket. I think they've still got a bit of a way to go to catch up in red ball cricket. But when they've got guys like Kieran Pollard and Jason Holder and those sort of guys on the field, they can do some serious damage. And I hope that their success in this series kickstarts or continues to kickstart a resurgence of cricket in the West Indies. Because when the West Indies are a good, strong side like they were in the 80s and 90s with Lara and Ambrose and Walsh, I think it can only be a good thing for world cricket. And I follow their junior side a bit. I know I've done a little bit of work with Akeem Auguste, who's the captain of the West Indies under-19s team, who are at the World Cup. And there's some fantastic young players in that squad. So I really hope that this West Indies group, who have just beaten England in this T20 series, they can continue to inspire the next generation of West Indian cricketers.
No, the game needs it, doesn't it? The game needs more competitive matches all around the world. And I think, I wouldn't want to let go of a white cricket ball to any of those blokes because, it'll get sent.
Yeah, and it could come back hard at you.
It could come back at you, yeah.
Dangerous game. Now, what have you enjoyed, Reedy?
I'm going to get real specific here. The Laurie Evans lofted cover drive, I think, in the T20 final.
Sexy.
It was just something else. I gave it the old retweet and all sorts. For him to hold his shape, I think it was a slightly slower off-pace ball. For him to hold his shape through the ball and lift it over cover, I think it was one of the prettiest shots I've ever seen. And to go with that partnership between Turner and Evans, I think they just showed so much courage under all that pressure of losing the first 4 wickets cheaply. So much courage to play their game, to back their options, and to not go into their shell. I think Ashton Turner lap swept his first ball, which straight away it puts the bowler on the back foot. And I think his tempo there early on really changed the momentum. I think early on there was a lot of trying to go boundary options quite a bit. But AT's tempo there was brilliant and started to be nice and busy and turn the game in their favour.
Well, AT, one of his greatest attributes, in my opinion, is not only, two of his greatest attributes. One is how calm he is and level. And Ashton Agar said afterwards that he thinks he's got higher honours in the leadership space ahead of him and hopes that he'll get an opportunity to captain Australia one day. But AT's always been an incredibly calm sort of guy who the big moments don't seem to faze him. But the other attribute that probably isn't talked about enough is how fast he is between the wickets. And he often just can knock it. Well, a lot of the good players do it. They take pace off the ball and they knock it into the leg side when there's 3 out on the boundary, and they sneak a 2. But AT just does that with ease at times. And I think a feature of that innings was not just the big shots, but also the running between the wickets. AT and Laurie Evans, even Laurie with a broken toe, their communication, their commitment to their running, their trust they had in their partner, which is a big thing that junior cricketers don't sort of have. They don't trust their partner, so there's always an element of doubt. I think when you get to that level, you have to trust your partner, and you know that they are able to judge a run well most of the time. So the trust they put in each other was amazing, and yeah, what an innings that was by those two. 4 for not many. And Laurie's lofted cover drive, I think Gilly called it the shot of the tournament. We show a lot of footage of hitting to our players, and we sort of teach that sort of method in our power hitting online course, and that is how you want to hit. That is a serious shot that I'm sure will be replayed and reshowed for many, many years. And for me, I'm also thrilled for our mate Vogsy, Adam Voges, a former teammate of ours. We go to the gym with him most weeks when he's in Perth, and yeah, he was under a bit of pressure at the start of last season. I think the Scorchers lost their first 4 games last season when they were on the road. There was a fair bit of pressure. There was a bit of noise around him potentially losing his job with the Scorchers, or them splitting the roles between the Warriors and the Scorchers. And for him, sort of just over 12 months later, to be the tournament, the championship winning coach, couldn't be more happy for Vogsy. I sort of, once Flip was ruled out of the semi-final and final, then my allegiances were purely with the Scorchers. I'm very lucky to have Greg Shippert as a mentor, and he's the coach of the Sixers. So I was always wanting Shippy to do well, but having won the last 2 tournaments, it was a nice sort of for the Scorchers to get it done. But for me, sorry, that was a bit of a long one there to follow up what you enjoyed. But for me, what I've enjoyed is the Women's Ashes Test yesterday. I've already spoken about it, but England was set 257 to win, and they gave it a serious nudge. They were 2 for 160 at one stage, 2 for 166 just before Heather Knight got out. They were absolutely cruising. I think they lost something like 6 or 7 for 20 odd in a space of 30 odd balls, but they never really gave up the chase until they were 9 out. Even Charlie Dean, who was caught top edging a sweep shot off Alana King, she was still going for it when they were 8 out. And the cricket, as I've already said, was high quality. It was really, really high quality. It was exciting, and you could see that the cat and mouse between Australia dangled the carrot with the run chase. They had 45 overs. They needed just over 5 and over from the get-go. And the way they started before the tea break with Beaumont and Winfield Hill, they were none down for 30-odd at tea. And then Knight went at almost run a ball strike rate of 88. Siva went at 93. And then Sophia Dunkley struck at 140 with 5 fours and 2 sixes. So they put the Aussies on the back foot. The Aussies were reeling for a while there, and they probably were regretting their decision. But in the big moments, it's all about how you handle those big moments. And it doesn't matter what happens up until a certain point. You have to get the job done. And unfortunately for England, they didn't quite go deep enough. They didn't quite have those batters still in at the end. They lost Knight, they lost Siva, they lost Dunkley, and then it was down to the middle and lower order to try and get on with it with not much time left. And unfortunately, Jones was out for 4 off 7, Brunt 4 off 6, Shrubs 6 off 16, 3 off 5. It's always harder to start than it is for an established player to go on with it. So, but it was proper cricket. And I'd love to have seen more Test cricket.
I liked the bravery of bowling Alana King at the end. I think at one stage I saw they needed roughly 30 odd off the 5 overs, and to bring on your leg spinner, I think was great captaincy, because they've got to make the pace of the ball, and then it brings your boundary riders in, and also for Alana to then execute. I think she had a nice plan going around the wicket, make him hit different spots. It was interesting.
And there was a couple of overs there where Siva and Dunkley were cruising. They needed less than a run of ball. They were absolutely doing it easy. And then Sutherland bowled Sutherland bowled the first over. They got one off it, bowling primarily to, I think it was to Siva and Nat Siva, and bowling short balls and bowling good line and length and just mixing it up. And they got one off the over. Then Kingy bowled her next over, and they only got one off that over as well. And that really swung the momentum. And Kingy's ability to handle the big moment in her first Test match was crucial. And those two young ladies, which we've already mentioned, Sutherland and King, were phenomenal. And full credit to Lanning and Perry, the leaders in that group, for backing them and giving them the support they needed. But it was highly, highly enthralling cricket. And for me, that leads into what I haven't enjoyed. And I just am really disappointed that there's not more women's Test cricket. I don't think that the professional women and even the at district level, I don't think they play enough cricket, in my opinion. But one Test match isn't enough. Catherine Brunt, who's 36 years old, she's played 14 Test matches in her career. She's been playing for England for 17 years, and that's less than one Test a year. I think that right now, there's probably no money to be made for the broadcasters and for the governing bodies. But if you build it, they will come. And I think that if you put Test cricket in front of enough eyeballs and you play enough Test cricket with the stronger nations, Australia, India, England, New Zealand, South Africa, whoever, well, then there will be eyeballs. There will be people that will tune in and want to watch that, because yesterday's cricket was so exciting, and I just really wish there was a second and a third Test, because I'm sure it would have been just as fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's time to rack either the T20s or the one-dayers out of the women's Ashes, because we see so much white ball cricket. And maybe an idea, go to a three Test series as well to add on to it, or the Ashes gets decided by Test cricket, and I think that's how it should be. It's the purest form of the game. I don't see a reason why they couldn't do the same sort of thing. And then for me, like that leads into what I haven't enjoyed. I'm going to double down on this, and it's 2022, and the women's Test wasn't on free-to-air television. I think that is just unbelievable. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I think we need more eyes on these sort of games, and that's the only way it's going to grow, and people need to invest in women's cricket a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got some fantastic young female cricketers in our system, and we really hope that they have the opportunity to play, if they're good enough, they have the opportunity to play red ball Test cricket in the future in front of millions of viewers, because as I said, I really want to get my daughter watching cricket, and it's going to be far more relatable for her to see some women, some young girls, some young ladies on the TV than it is the boys or the men. So hopefully that changes pretty soon. And well done to Alyssa Healy and a few of the other ladies who were sort of campaigning for it to get onto free-to-air and those sort of things, because that's what we need. Now, moving into the next phase of today's show, we're going to move into a bit of a little tennis theme here, but something that I think we can all learn from and we can all get a lot of value out of is Ash Barty's story. Now, Ash Barty is the world #1 female tennis player, and she won the Australian Open on Saturday night. And she was incredible, not just throughout this tournament, but she's been the best tennis player in the world for the last few years. And I have really resonated with her story for some time now. I first came across her story on a podcast I was sent a couple of years ago. It was a podcast where a guy called Ben Crow was a guest on SEN with Tim Watson and Gary Lyon. And they were speaking to Ben Crow about what he does and a few of his ideas, and they spoke about Ash Barty. And in that episode, Ben Crow spoke about how Ash Barty Let's rewind it a bit. Ash Barty, going back in 2015, she took time off tennis. She won Junior Wimbledon. Prior to that, she had all these expectations on her as a tennis player, and with expectation, often comes pressure. Often people can stop enjoying it. And she fell out of love with tennis. She stopped playing, and she actually went. This is how good of an athlete she is. She went and played in the WBBL. She played a year of professional cricket or a season of professional cricket for the Brisbane Heat. I think she's also a pretty handy golfer. I think she's off 2 or 3 in golf, and she's obviously a phenomenal sportswoman. But she had a year or so off tennis, and this is about the time she met Ben Crowe. And Ben Crowe spent some time with her. I think he said in this podcast he flew and spent about a week with her. And during that time, they discussed who she is as a person and what does she value as a person. What makes her as a person. And she came up with this list of what she likes and what makes her her. Things like she enjoys going to the footy. She's a big Richmond Football Club fan. She enjoys coffee. She enjoys being an auntie and spending time with her niece and nephew. And she came up with this long list of things that make her her. And the whole part of the process was trying to get her to not identify herself as just Ash Barty, the tennis player, but Ash Barty, the lady who plays tennis, but also likes being an auntie, going to the footy. And with this exercise that Ash went through with her mindset coach, Ben Crowe, she started to enjoy her tennis again. She got back into tennis. She started to enjoy it again. And she started to take the pressure off herself and off her performances. And she started to focus on enjoying tennis and enjoying the fact that she's just playing tennis. And if she loses, it doesn't mean she's a less valuable person or a less valuable human. And that message is something I've now shared. I've shared that podcast with a number of our athletes. It's something that we teach our athletes at our camps when we get a chance to have a few athletes in the same room. We talk about the identity piece that you young people, you young cricketers, you young athletes, you love cricket, but you're not just a cricketer. You are someone who plays cricket, but you're also a son. You're also a daughter. You're also a brother, a sister. You also love your Xbox. You also love your mates. You love fishing. You love going out on a boat. Whatever it is, cricket, and for Ash, tennis is only a part of what makes us a human being. And when Ash sort of really bought into that, and she also talks a lot about becoming vulnerable and being open to her feelings and to her emotions and saying if she's struggling or really trying to be open to all the emotions, that is when she started becoming the tennis player she was always capable of being. Winning Junior Wimbledon, she obviously was a highly skilled athlete at a young age, but now she's sort of living that potential that she's always had because she's approaching her tennis in the right way. And for me, the way she's gone about this Australian Open, where she hasn't lost a set, she's lost the least amount of matches, least amount of games in a tournament ever, or in a very long time. I saw an Instagram post about. And yeah, I think that there's so much that all of our listeners and viewers can take from Ash Barty's journey.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an incredible story. I think what I noticed watching her matches is how emotionally level she stays, whether she's down, whether she's shanked one, no matter what's going on, she might be in front by miles, but she just stays level, stays on the job because the game's in perspective now. And you see that amongst the better athletes all around the world. I think in tennis, you see it quite often. People can't control their emotions, and then they throw away matches purely just from losing the plot, I guess. And I think you could see how good a space she was in. I think there was footage of her in the hallways of Rod Laver Arena playing cricket with a little entourage. So that just shows what sort of space she's in, and it's not the end of the world anymore. Yeah, absolutely. And it's about enjoyment. It's about really trying to enjoy the little moments as well as the big moments. And there was a commentator, I might have been Todd Woodbridge or someone, that said, like, playing in the final in front of her home crowd, they don't see that bothering her because of the headspace she's in and how focused she is on her process, how sort of driven she is by just showing up and trying to be present and trying to win each point, win each moment.
And if it's meant to be, and if that means that she's done it well enough to then get the result of winning the tournament, well, then so be it. And absolutely, it was good enough. But she was not focusing on the outcome. She was not focusing on, I'm going to be the first woman in 40-odd years, or the first Australian in 40-odd years to win the Australian Open. She was focusing on, what do I need to do in this moment? What do I need to do right now to win this point, to bring my best to this moment? And as you just said, you referred to the best athletes of it being very level. That's what the best athletes do. They're very level. They don't ride the roller coaster. They don't get really up when they're playing well. They don't get really down when they're not playing so well. They just try and bring their best to each moment. And if it's good enough, great. If it's not, they take a moment or so to reflect and learn and try and bank that information so that they can be better in the future. And then they move on to the next moment, because that becomes the most important thing. And you could see that in the way she was going about it. She was enjoying it, but she was laser focused. She was really, really present. And that's where, for all of us, any athlete, any human being, that's where our best lives, is in the present moment.
Oh, there's just no doubting that. And I think we see it daily, don't we? In our one-on-one sessions, people make a mistake or they don't hit one perfectly, and then they carry it for the rest of the session with them, and then that affects their performance. And we just can't stress enough how important this story is and what you can learn from it. It's incredible, really, like the turnaround.
Yeah, I've seen so many good cricketers who have their session ruined, and then they end up having a bad few sessions, maybe a week or a couple of weeks or even a month, on the back of a couple of mishits or a couple of shanks. And often they're on tricky turf wickets at club training, or you're challenging their skill set in the nets with the bowling machine or the sidearm, and you're gonna make mistakes. So I think you've got to really understand that is part of the process. And the better athletes, they learn to accept them and move on very quickly. And I think it goes back in some ways to the identity piece, where they're not valuing themselves as a person based on the outcome. They're not saying, I mishit it, I'm a bad cricketer, that means I'm a bad person. And that's what a lot of kids do. A lot of kids do value themselves as a person based on how well their cricket's going, and their cricket is all determined by the last ball. I didn't hit it well, I'm no good. Rather than saying, I know I'm a pretty good player. I know I've got this. I'm going to make some mistakes along the way, but I know I'm trying to do my best and I'm getting better. And I accept that when the mistakes come, I'll just, I'm going to learn from it, move on, and not be so critical and so judgmental. Something that we talk a lot about to our athletes is, in the moment of practicing and even in games, you want to try and be curious. So you're always learning, you're always understanding what's going on, not judgmental. Most people go, that was good, I'm happy, or that was bad, I'm angry. Rather than going, why did that work? Why didn't that work? And if you can get to that headspace, that's where I think the best players live. They're really curious, they're not judging themselves, and they move on to the next moment really quickly.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant lesson. I think that's going to take us into our next segment here, and we're going to stick to a tennis theme for now. Rafael Nadal, he came back from 2 sets to love down. The man was dripping. The match went for 5.5 hours last night. I don't know if you saw any, but it was one of the most grueling sporting events I've ever witnessed. And like every game was going to juice 3, juice 4. Like they kept breaking each other. There would be 3 break points. A game would get saved or something just outrageous. Every game was battled hard. And I think, like we just spoke about, Rafael Nadal was able to stay level. When he was 2 sets down, he stayed level. He didn't throw the toys out of the cot, and he just gradually started to work his way back. And you could see Medvedev was starting to slowly lose it with the umpires, the ball kids. And so that was Nadal focusing on his process, not the outcome. He was focusing on, what do I need to do to win this moment? I have to win this moment, the next moment, the next moment to get back into the set, not the outcome. And maybe Medvedev was starting to think about the winning the tournament and getting ahead of himself. Yeah, it was pretty clear to see on either side of the net what was going on. And Nadal is so particular with what his process, his routines. He has to have his water bottles facing the right way and not step on any lines and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, for this reason, the man's known as the raging bull. He's a grinder no matter what the situation is, and for that reason, I'm crossing sporting codes here. but he's going to get capped number 6 of the Grinders Club, and I'm bloody excited to have him in our top 6.
Welcome, Rafa.
Cheers, Rafa. I wonder if he's ever seen a cricket ball, but you just know you'd want him out there opening the batting on a tough deck, taking the shine off. He'd cop body blows. That's just someone you want in any side, really, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I reckon last night's 5-hour, 24-minute marathon was probably like Tubby Taylor's 300 in Pakistan. Where
exactly.
Batted for 2 days and... Yeah, or Dean Jones being in India where he was on a drip the night before his double 100, and that's a mammoth effort. I didn't get to watch much last night, but I was following it, and I sort of went to bed when it was 2-1. And then I thought, come on, Rafa. I was really hoping Rafa would get it done, but I woke up. The first thing I did this morning was check the internet, check the scores, and what a huge effort. And he is a very deserving entrant to your Grinders Club.
No, it's a pleasure. Could he be skipper? Nah, maybe not skipper. Nah, but no, he's an absolute freak athlete. I can't believe their fitness levels.
So cap number 6.
Yep.
Who have we got so far? Who are the members? We've got Dean Elgo as the first invitee.
Yep, Rahul Dravid, last episode. Then we had, I think we unofficially announced Chris Rogers as the CEO of the club. Yep. And then we had myself purely because I can't hit it off the square, and then young Teague Wiley just loves grinding and getting red ink and winning games for his side no matter what.
So that's a good top 6. Quite a few opening batters in there, so you'll have to fill around. Rafa might just slide in at number 6 and get it done. Now, we spoke earlier about the sweep shot, and today's question refers back to that. It's something that we've shared a bit on our socials about, because it's a process Teague's been through over the last few years, and it's been pretty well documented about our trip to India and how much of an impact that had for Teague, and how he is now playing spin quite well over in the West Indies. There's always room for improvement. He's certainly not a master of it yet, but he's using his sweep shot really, really effectively. And today's question is, what are your thought processes when sweeping? Did you sweep off the stumps or wait for one going down leg or outside off? And what about sweeping against the spin? What are your thoughts on this, Reedy?
No, yeah, I found it so interesting watching him go about this the other night, and I firstly think you've just got to make the conscious decision that you're going to start sweeping, and I think if you need to make the effort and put in the time to sweep in training. I think you can't just go out willy-nilly and decide, oh shit, he's all over me here, I might swipe across one and hope for the best. I think Teague had a method where he was committing to it no matter what, and I personally I've struggled with spin, and I've found that this season I've been doing some underarm drills with sweeping and just doing 10 or 20 in a warm up before a game, and you just feel so much more confident with it. In terms of whether it's spinning in or spinning out, I think that's the personal preference, really. I think you need to understand yourself there, and if you're not comfortable doing it on the stumps, so you might have a better option to hit straight when it's on the stumps. But I think I'm more sweeping when it's off the stumps. I like sweeping when it's outside off, or going with it down leg, personally, as a left-hander. But yeah, I think because he was committing to it fully, and showing the courage to do it, I think that held him in good stead, even if it was turning away. Yep.
Well, I think you made a few very good points there. And the first, which we can't stress enough, is you have to practice it regularly. I probably learned to play the sweep shot when I was about 20 or so, when I spent a bit of time at Middlesex, and I asked one of the boys who was a really good sweeper, Tom Smith, to help me with the fundamentals. And so I went away and I worked really hard at those fundamentals. And then I remember a grade season being back in Perth and saying to the coach, I want to develop my sweep shot. I want to work on my sweep shot. And I went into a spin net and I said to the bowlers, I'm going to try and sweep every single ball. And I remember that the first net session, I probably hit 1 in 4. And the others were hitting me in the arm, the helmet, missing them, getting bowled, whatever. But I was okay with that because I was willing to make mistakes to get better. And I was communicating what I was trying to do. The next session, I might have hit 2 in 4. And I did that for a few weeks, and all of a sudden, just understanding which balls I could and couldn't sweep made a big difference. And I had the trust and the confidence, as well as in the background working on my fundamentals. And so for the past sort of 10, 12 years of my career, a sweep shot was a big part of it. And I had a lot of success, first off, slog sweeping spinners, and then in the back half of my career, hard sweeping and lap sweeping spinners. And for me, it's all about risk. It's all about, do you need to take that risk? In red ball cricket, often, like if Teague's playing red ball cricket, he's not sweeping very often. He would, unless he really needs to break the shackles or put the bowler off. But he's playing with a vertical bat and trying to just minimize the risk. And I'm similar. I would only sort of go to my sweep, even though it became one of my better shots in the second half of my career. I'd only go to it if I as a reaction or as a premeditated, I need to score in that area. So, semi-final, one-day semi-final last year against Claremont, I went into bat. Wellesley had just hit one to mid-on. We were 2 for 50 maybe. I went into bat, and there was an off-spinner bowling round the wicket. And he just drifted one onto leg stump. And so I just naturally swept with the spin behind square for 4. And then the next boy drifted onto the leg stump again. Same sort of thing. So I was 8 off 3 balls. They moved their field around. And then I thought to myself, if he floats it up outside, I'm going to slog sweep him over mid-wicket because there's no one there. There's a lot of space. And he did exactly what I was wanting, that ball. So I picked the ball. I hit him for 6. I think I was on 14 off 4 balls from 3 different sweep shots. And so for me, that was, the first 2 were more reaction. The third one was a bit of a premeditated plan, but I was only going to do that if the ball was in the right spot. If he bowled that on middle and off, spinning into the stumps, well, then that's when the risk goes up, and I probably didn't need to play that shot in that moment. So I think a lot is to do with the risk, and which way it's spinning, in my opinion, doesn't matter, because you want to be getting it either as it bounces or on the full. But what does matter is the angles. If the left arm is coming round the wicket, left arm ortho is coming round the wicket, bowling wide on the crease, you've got to be mindful of his angle. That's a different angle than a leggy bowling over the wicket. Or a right arm offie bowling over the wicket, it's a different angle to a left arm around the wicket. So you just got to be mindful of the angles and the trajectory of your sweep shot. But personally, it's about risk. In white ball, T20 cricket, I'm far more likely to premeditate a sweep and then sort of hope that they bowl in the certain area. But again, I wouldn't be premeditating against a spinner who misses their line and length regularly, because I wouldn't need to sweep, but B, the chances of them bowling the ball where I want it is low, and I could probably just play any other shot. I could cart, pull, whatever. So if I'm premeditating a sweep, it's usually against an accurate spinner, and it's usually to just, not only score runs, but make them think about it. Make them either change the field, change their line, change the length or whatever, but just put a little bit of pressure back on the bowler. So long sort of answer there for me, but A, you've got to practice it a lot. You want to practice all your options and work out what you're good at. Something that Teague has done really, really well this series is he's got across his stumps, he's got his front foot going out towards the offside, and he's sweeping the ball from outside off behind square, based on what position he's getting his body into, because that's where he's most comfortable. That's where he's got the most trust and confidence. I sort of spoke to him after the game the other day, and I've encouraged him to do is keep practicing, like you said, keep practicing with his underarms, hitting the ball, lining his leg more up in line with the ball and hitting the ball just in front of square. Because the other day, he nailed some sweeps behind square, but they'd put a man there after he hit 2 or 3 boundaries there. And then he shuffled across his crease, he went to slog sweep a couple, and he did sort of roll them square, but they weren't exactly where he was trying to go, but he got 2 boundaries for them. So if he can start sweeping behind square early, they put a man there, and then he can start to sweep on square in front of square, he's going to be incredibly hard to bowl to. But like you said, it's a work in progress for him. It's something he's not done a whole lot of in his life. He started sweeping a little under 3 years ago when we took that tour to India. We spent 10 days at the Karnataka Institute of Cricket in Bangalore, and Teague probably batted for 8 hours a day while we were there, and that was something that I'd always thought that he could be anything as a player, but just seeing his hunger to bat and his love of batting while we were there just sort of reaffirmed what I'd always thought. But he worked so hard at his sweeping. Similar story to me, where he made lots of mistakes early, and he was willing to make mistakes, willing to look a bit silly against the Indian spinners, but then he started to have a bit of progress. He then came back to Perth, and it's something we constantly do. I know he does it with the guys at the Wacker. He's regularly sweeping. I know they try and get him sweeping a lot there. And then whenever he's with me, we do a bit of spin. We get our underarm sweeps. I encourage him to sort of sweep me. If I'm bowling off, he's in him, or whoever's bowling at him, just practice. And even the month before he went away, he was still making lots of mistakes. But so far in the World Cup, it's been very, very impressive. And the one thing that you said is commitment. He's really committing to it. He's watching it closely, and he's got such good hand-eye coordination that even when they fire it in at the stumps and it's behind him a bit, he's still been hitting it and getting runs from it. And yeah, full credit to him for all the work he's put into his sweep shot.
I think he even got a bit funky and peppered backward point with a couple of nice reverse sweeps as well. So it's all he's starting to understand his blueprint against spin, and he's got options, that is just going to be the difference for him going forward compared to a lot of other young players, even in that team.
Yeah, well, a few of the other young guys haven't got to the sweep shot, and I just imagine they haven't got trust in it, they haven't practiced it, but I can assure anyone watching or listening to this that Teague's put a lot of time and effort into it, and that's why he's able to trust it on those spinning wickets. Now, let's move on to our performances of the week, and we've got a pretty long list here, so we'll run through them rather quickly. We'll start with Teague. 262 runs at 132 in the World Cup. He's had 4 innings, 101 not out against Scotland. A few people said, it's only Scotland. Yep, fair enough. So then he's also got runs against Pakistan, who are a pretty highly fancied attack, a pretty high-quality attack. So 71. And unfortunately, he was absolutely filthy when he got out. He walked across his stumps and got bowled behind his legs, trying to just nick a single to the leg side while his partner at the other end was going after them. But again, him and Campbell Kellaway getting the Aussies off to a great start. And I think that's going to be a huge... So how's this? After 6 overs in the last game, Australia versus Pakistan, Aussies were none for 30 maybe. And Buck said they've won, that 6 overs has won them the game. Buck was like, they're going to win the game from this because they got put in. They lost the toss and got put in. And generally, the game started at 9 a.m. over there, and the white ball has been seaming around and doing a bit. And most sides have been 2 or 3 down in the first sort of 10 overs for not many. And Kellaway, especially in that innings, got the Aussies off to a great start. Teague didn't face as many balls. He was nudging them around, but Kellaway played some beautiful shots. So how those two go at the top of the order is going to really determine the Aussies' chances against India in the semi-final and if they progress further than that into the final. But Teague he just keeps defying the odds and just keeps getting runs. He's amazing. John Wells, we have to mention Wellsy, got the second most runs in the BBL this year. Snuck up in the last few games, a few really important innings for the strikers in the last few games. Finished with 501 runs at an average of 38.5 and a strike rate of almost 130. He's now the 4th all-time leading run scorer in the Big Bash. He's a quiet achiever. He's underrated, but boy, is he consistent. So Wellsy, well done. Now, I'll hand this one over to you, Reedy. Tell us about Connor's fifer.
Yeah, Connor Blacksall Hill for Perth Cricket Club on Saturday or last Saturday against the mighty Melbourne Storm. He was quality. He bowled 21 overs, took 5 for 39. I think bowling is off spin. It was genuinely one of the best spells of spin I've seen in grade cricket. The wicket was assisting a bit. It was a bit tacky, so he was getting some unbelievable turn and bounce, but his control with that was exceptional. He's a pretty quiet and humble bloke, old Connor, but we've got to pump his tyres up a bit here. I haven't faced off-spin bowling like that in grade cricket personally, and I think it needs to be discussed more. Yeah,
well, I switched on when Reedy was, what did you make, 20-odd first innings?
Yeah, I don't know, threw another one away.
Reedy was on 20-odd. I switched on. The live stream wasn't really working. It just started to work. I switched on, and then Connor bowling to Reedy. Connor's one of our mentors and a student of mine, and Connor got one to bounce and bite off hit Reedy on the stickers and caught a really good catch actually at silly mid-off, and you were his first of his 5, I think. Is that right?
Yeah. Who gets caught at silly mid-off in grade cricket? You don't see that every day. So that sort of shows what sort of form he was in with the ball, getting it to really talk.
Yeah, and the Perth boys speak very highly of him as a bowler. So, yeah, good things for Connor to come, hopefully. And running through a few other scores over the last 2 weeks, the last round, Ethan Smith, 105 not out of 113 balls for Willetton in under-17s. Probably could have gone and got a massive one, but he had to get in the car and drive down to second grade. He was not out in both games, and he went down to the second grade and got another 30 in the afternoon before being run out. Shawnee Bors playing second grade in that same game. He was batting with Ethan when he got run out. First senior 100 for Willetton. Again, 106 not out of 230 balls. And on that note, little shout out to Liam Hindle, who's producing this show today. He got his first grade 100 as well on the weekend. So well done to Liam in a big partnership with Shawnee. And then Corey Sweetman playing under 14s for Fremantle Cricket Club the week before, 136 out of 143 balls. It was a really interesting chat with him after that. He said he had a bit of a sore back, wasn't sure if he was going to play, but he got it done that day. And Jack Moraldo, 4th grade for Wanneroo Cricket Club, 141 off 122 balls. Absolutely smoked them the week before in a dominant performance by Wanneroo Cricket Club against Claremont. And Jack Garner-Dart, a young 15-year-old, opened the batting for Claremont and carried his bat in the first innings. Claremont rolled for 81. Jack got 33 not out, opening the batting and carried his bat. So good effort from young Jack there. Now, Reedy, on to the predictions. And Skulls takes a bit of a lead. I think it's a bit of a controversy in the office here. I believe I should be getting 3 points for my prediction last game. Reedy's shaking his head and says it's only worth 1. In our last podcast, I predicted that whoever won out of the Strikers and Hurricanes would go on to win the next match against the Thunder. So I got that one right, tick. I also predicted the Scorchers would win the tournament, and I predicted Darcy Short would get some runs, and he got 50-odd. But Reedy's only given me 1 point, even though I got all 3 right. Reedy predicted India would bounce back against South Africa, so they didn't, and they didn't. So Skulls takes a lead 1-0 in our predictions. So what do you got for us this time, Reedy?
Well, firstly, I don't know where I said make 3 predictions. I said make 1 prediction. So, but credit to you. I'll give you the one with the Adelaide Strikers. Getting it done in both games, that's a pretty fair effort to call 2 results there. This week, we're making 1 prediction, Skulls, okay? I'm going to go with Australia will be too good in the first women's ODI. I think they're a really strong white ball outfit, as they've shown over the years, and I think we'll stamp their authority in this one.
Gee, you've really gone out on a limb there.
I need to get on the board. That's
a really high-risk prediction from you. Well, I'm going to go against the Aussie boys in the Under-19 World Cup. This is not what I want to happen. Obviously, I want Australia to go all the way, and I really hope Teague and Cooper and the boys keep getting it done. But I just think India, they're so good at underage level. They're so good at any level, really. But I think India will be a touch too strong for Australia. I think it'll be a high-scoring game. From all reports, India's bowling is pretty good, but their batting is exceptional. And in the warm-up match before this tournament started, Cooper Connolly scored an amazing 100, but the Indians chased 271 down, I think. So Aussies are going to have their work cut out, so I think India will be too strong. That's my prediction already, but I'm just going to throw in a couple of extra little side notes. I think England will be too strong for Afghanistan in the other semi-final, so it'll be an India-England final with India winning the tournament. So there's my prediction for the Under-19 World Cup. But as I said, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope Teague and the boys get it done. Yeah,
I like that. I think you're onto one there as well. India are always strong, aren't they?
Yep.
No matter where they are. But, long episode, good episode again.
Yeah, well, hopefully our viewers and listeners got some value. Hopefully the sound quality is a little bit better now. We've got these bad boys. Reedy, it's been a pleasure as always. Some good stuff in there, and hopefully, we can keep talking a bit of pump and giving some value. So thanks a lot, everyone, for tuning in. Have a great week, and go out, get it done, and back yourself.